Great, thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to our daily Shiur here on the Facebook page of Chabad of Rechavia and on Zoom. Thank you very much to Raya and Mordechai Meltz that are helping us broadcast this video to you. Last Parsha we were talking about Yitzchak, we were talking about Avraham burying Sarah, and Yitzchak finding a wife, basically, with the whole interesting story of Eliezer. And there's a very interesting word that we might say at the end of the Shiur. But today I want to discuss our Parsha. Our Parsha talks about two interesting people, Esav and Yaakov, who happen to be brothers. And although they were brothers, they weren't exactly the same style, the same kind. They didn't have the same behavior and the same attitude. So today we're going to go and we're going to talk a bit about them, but I want to ask you a question. We all agree, we all know that Yitzchak was a big tzaddik. He was the son of Avraham. The extraordinary milos, the advantages, and the special expressions that Chazal tell us about Yitzchak are unbelievable. La'asid lavai, when Mashiach will come, it says that the only person that will refer to as one of the fathers isn't Avraham, it's not even Yaakov, it's Yitzchak. Yitzchak was such a special person. It says he was a tamim, he was shalem, he was full, he was pure. He did not even leave Eretz Yisrael. Why? Hashem told him, even though there was a famine in those times in Eretz Yisrael, Hashem told him, you aren't like your father, you cannot leave Eretz Yisrael because you are pure and holy. All of this brings us to a simple conclusion that Yitzchak was a pure person. He was a high, holy tzaddik. And the question is as follows. How could it be that he had a son like Esav? Esav, as we are going to go and learn in the upcoming psukim, was a person he basically spent most of his life hunting. And he was a well-known liar that tried to cheat on his father. So he wasn't the best person to be, if we would put it simple. He was a person that had a lot of things to improve. So what is it? How could it be that Yitzchak had such a son by the name of Esav that behaved like Esav? And interestingly, if we would look into Yaakov, Yaakov is quite the opposite. Yaakov is also a tamim and a shalom. It says Yaakov ish tam yoshev ohalim. He used to sit and learn all day in his tent, in his ohel. So on the one hand, we see that Yitzchak had a very good son, a pure, holy son like himself. But on the other hand, we see that there's this person by the name of Esav. So in order to understand that, I would like to share with you a story. There was once this person that came to the Rebbe for private audience, and he was a Baal Tshuva. A few years before he started to come close to Yiddishkeit. And he came close to Yiddishkeit, and as he was returning, he felt a bit of guilt. He felt guilty because of his name. What was his name? His name was Nimrod. We've all heard of Nimrod. Nimrod was a very interesting king that lived. He actually lived until, if I'm not mistaken, he lived until the times also of Esav. There are very interesting midrashim about him. But to make it simple, he wasn't a good, positive king. He was a king that did not really go according to Hashem's laws. He didn't really believe in Hashem. It says more than that, Nimrod. What is the source of Nimrod in Hebrew? In Lashon HaKodesh. What does it mean, Nimrod? Nimrod comes from the shoresh, from the source of mered, a rebellion. He basically rebelled against Hashem. That's where his name comes from. Nimrod comes from the word mered, to rebel against Hashem, not to obey Hashem's commands, and to go against it. So this person was in the middle of a process of becoming a Baal Tshuva, and he felt very guilty about his name. So he entered the Rebbe for private audience, and he tells the Rebbe the follows. He tells the Rebbe, my name is Nimrod, and I feel that it's not a good name. I would like to change it. So I'm not going to tell you now the answer of the Rebbe. It's a very interesting answer. The answer is connected to our Shiur. Today we are going to learn about this very topic about Nimrod. Is it something good or is it something bad? Okay. So let's go back to a question that that reflects us today in our lives. Today, we know that all of our powers come, all of our koichos that we have in order to serve Hashem. It's not like we have them automatically. It's not something that is obvious that it comes from itself. We get these powers and these koichos in our DNA because of our forefathers. They're not just called forefathers because we are their descendants, or because they happen to live centuries and thousands of years before us. That would be also a nice reason to call them fathers, but there's something else. Our fathers give us the power. They give us special koichos in order to basically succeed in the days today, in our days. And I'm talking about our days literally today, but also throughout the Jewish generation. And now I've got a question. We spoke about it a few weeks ago. We spoke about the power that Avraham gave us to be able to moser nefesh, to be able to sacrifice ourselves in a true way, not in order to promote a certain ideology or in order to promote a certain cause or to cause something, but purely for the sake of Hashem, being able to kill ourselves, literally, for that sake, for the sake of Hashem. We got that power especially from Abraham. Without Abraham, we would not be able to actually, I would say, annihilate ourselves purely for Hashem. There would definitely be a certain reason, a certain hidden reason. Abraham gave us the power. The truth is that not only Abraham gave us the power, but also the other forefathers gave us the powers to cope with today's lives. And so here's the question. We know that our lives, we have tzaddikim, we have balei tshuva. 99.9% of the population, I'll tell you a secret, 99.9% of the population are balei tshuva. Me, you, and everyone around us has to do tshuva. We aren't pure. We aren't 100% connected to Hashem in a full way. So if we aren't connected to Hashem in a full way, then where do we have to become balei tshuva. We have to become better. When we have to become better, where do we get the power to overcome and to correct mistakes that we have done in the past? Where do we get those powers from? There's got to be some kind of source. And as we said before, when we spoke about Avraham gave us the power to overcome the idea of Mesirut Nefesh, to be able to have the powers for Moser Nefesh. Which of the forefathers gave us the power to become balei tshuva? It's not such an obvious thing that we can become balei tshuva. It's not so easy. Becoming a balei tshuva means fixing the past. We can't travel in time. That's something that we have to have special powers in order to actually fix our past. So where did the forefathers give us this special power? Where did they give it to us? Did they give it to us? They were all pure people. They were all tzaddikim. We said 99.9% are balei tshuva. There's 0.01% that are tzaddikim. Who are those? The forefathers. The forefathers and the Nesirei Hador in each generation. So if the forefathers were pure people, holy, high, tzaddikim that never sinned, where do we get the power to become balei tshuva? Where do we where do we get the powers for that? The truth is that when we learn a bit about our Parsha and we learn about Esav, it's an interesting fact, but it is a fact, that Esav was a Jew. We all think that Esav was probably someone that's not connected to Judaism at all. He was a Jew. Chazal referred to him as a Jew, but they say he was a Jew that was a mumar. He basically converted. He went off the derech completely, but he was Jewish. More than that, Esav did keep Torah and mitzvahs till the age of 13, till his grandfather passed away. The Medrash tells us that Avraham made sure that his grandson Esav would do mitzvot, would actually listen to Hashem. And then on the day that Avraham passed away, he decided to leave it all. He decided that he's not connected anymore. But he did keep mitzvahs. And if he did keep mitzvahs, we have some kind of clue that Esav isn't just an ordinary person. He is the brother of Yaakov. He is the brother of Yaakov, and there is something to him. It could be that he's not an easy case. Yaakov is the ideal son, but Esav has some kind of special power, some kind of special thing in him that makes him the son of Yitzchak. And it's hinted to us when the Medrash tells us that Esav actually did keep Torah and mitzvahs. Esav did listen to Hashem for a certain amount of time. You know, for a fact, we just finished Parshat Chayei. Parshat Chayei is always related to Hebron, to Ma'arat HaMachpelah, because in the Parsha, it talks about Avram buying Ma'arat HaMachpelah, where Avram was buried. And the truth is that Esav's head was buried there too. That's also Medrash that tells us that. There was a whole argument, a whole interesting thing that happened there. But the fact is that Esav is also, his head is buried in Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Why? And why his head in particular? Because Esav, his essence is good. He is a Jew. In his essence, he's connected to Hashem. And that's why he had the zchus to be buried in Ma'arat HaMachpelah. His head, again. His body, because his body didn't listen to Hashem actually, that's why it wasn't buried there. But his head, which means his essence, that was connected to Hashem, and that's why he was buried in there. So this Esav, he's very interesting. He's an interesting person. So what he had, if we would describe Esav, if we would try and analyze him, he had what we call today a Yetzer Hara. This Esav, he wasn't like Yaakov. Yaakov was a pure person from the age that he was born. The age that he was born, we already knew that he's going to be good. He's going to listen to Hashem. He's going to do mitzvahs. He's going to learn Torah. And there's a very interesting medrash in the beginning of our parsha. The medrash tells us that when Rivka was pregnant, whenever she used to go past a shul, a place where they used to worship Hashem, what happened? She felt like one of the children wants to leave. Then she didn't know that it was one of them. She didn't know that there were two children. She thought there's only one. Whenever she went close to a place that they worship idols, she felt again that the child wants to leave, wants to go out to the world. So she didn't know what's going on. She thought this person has some kind of problem, this baby that she has. She went to ask the Chachamim in that generation, and they told her, don't worry. You have two children, two sons, and they both will become great nations, big nations, different and separate nations. But at the beginning, that was a prophecy. At the beginning, Esav had the full potential to become a very good person. All he had was a Yetzer Hara. A Yetzer Hara means he had the potential to do bad. He had what we call today, he wasn't pure, he wasn't innocent. He had another side to him that wanted to drag him to do bad. But he also, as everyone has, he also had a part that was good inside him. Why? Because he was the son of Yitzchak. Esav, in other words, was a regular human being. Yaakov was something special, something extraordinary. Yaakov was pure, Yaakov was holy. Yaakov was a tzaddik. Esav, on the other hand, he wasn't bad. We aren't saying that he was bad. He turned out to become bad, to be bad. We can tell it after thousands of years when we know the end of the story that he turns out to be a bad person. But at the beginning, when he just enters the world, he's got the potential to be good and the potential to be bad, as every one of us has. We all have this potential to do good, but we also have a potential to do bad. This is exactly Esav. And that's why when Esav actually was born, he was the son of Yitzchak. We started the Shiur, we asked the question, how could this be that Yitzchak has such a bad child? How could it be? And according to that Medrash, Yitzchak, basically what he wanted to do was to have a pure world. But Esav could have continued that way, in a better way even. Esav could have become the most complete person. He had the potential to do bad, as every one of us had, and he was supposed to overcome this nature of doing bad things. That's the true Esav. So again, when these two babies are fighting to leave to Avodah Zarah, Esav is trying to leave to worship Avodah Zarah in the stomach of Rivka. That is not because he is bad, it's because he got the potential. He's got the Yetzer Hara, who is telling him, yes, go worship Avodah Zarah. And that's why when he left and he started his years as a person, at the beginning, he did keep Torah and mitzvahs because he was able to control, with the help of his grandfather, his Yetzer Hara, his bad side. The bad king that tells him not to listen to Hashem was under control in those 13 years. This is about Tshuva. This is where our forefathers gave us the power to actually become Balei Tshuva. Because about Tshuva means you have the potential to do bad, but nevertheless you can overcome it. Esav was basically the first person, and all because of Yitzchak. Yitzchak was the person to bring this thing to the world, to bring this idea of doing tshuva, of having the potential to do bad and overcoming it into the world. Yaakov didn't even have the option to do bad. He was so pure, like the big tzaddikim. Big tzaddikim have no Yetzer Hara. David HaMelech tells it. David HaMelech says that he killed his Yetzer Hara when he was fasting. He fasted so much, and he caused the Yetzer Hara to be so weak that he did not have a Yetzer Hara at all. And that's all the tzaddikim. But we have the potential to overcome our Yetzer Hara and to do tshuva because of Yitzchak. Because Yitzchak brought to the world this idea. Where did he bring it? With his son Esav. That is the idea basically of Yitzchak. And now when we learn about Yitzchak and Esav, everything's clear. Yitzchak he was still the pure person. He brought a son that had the potential to do bad. But he didn't actually need to do bad. Unfortunately, he wasn't strong enough, and he survived only those 13 years. But nevertheless, he was still with the full potential to become good. To describe these two characters, because we have two characters, we have Yaakov and we have Esav. To describe these two characters, I would like to give you an example from something that appeals to all of us, food, right? So there are two kinds of food. One kind is sweet foods, like candy, like treats. There are all kinds of foods that are flavored just sweet. And then there's sweet and sour. Sweet and sour is a different kind of thing. Sweet and sour is a special food that isn't fully sweet, but nevertheless, it tastes even better. People like sweet and sour more than just candy. Why? Because that's the idea of about tshuva, basically. It's a mashal, it's brought in Tanya, that it's something that's sour, it's charif, but it was fixed in a certain way that it gives us flavor. That is basically the idea of Baalei Tshuva and of Tzaddikim. Baalei Tshuva are sweet and sour, Tzaddikim are sweet. Tzaddikim, there are only very few, but Baalei Tshuva, all of us are. Now I would like to share with you I would like to go back to the story of Nimrod. Nimrod is the Baal Tshuva that entered the Rebbe. So just 1 second, because of the noise, I'm just going to move to a different place, if you give me a moment. So we were in the middle of the story, this interesting story about Nimrod, who was this Baal Tshuva entering the Rebbe's, here's a beautiful picture of the Rebbe in the background, entering the Rebbe for private audience. And he enters the room and he tells the Rebbe, my name is Nimrod, I'm very unhappy that this is the name, and please, I would like to change it. The Rebbe told him, no, don't change your name. Keep it Nimrod. Keep being a rebel. But now, instead of doing like Nimrod, instead of rebelling against Hashem, you're going to rebel against the Yetzer Hara. Become a Nimrod. Continue to be a Nimrod. But instead of being a Nimrod, not listening to Hashem, don't listen to the Yetzer Hara. Wow, what an answer. This answer is the essence of a Baal Tshuva. A Baal Tshuva, someone that fixes the past, that actually can change the past, is someone that overcomes his Yetzer Hara. He is a rebel. He's a big rebel. But he chooses his enemies and he decides not to listen to the Yetzer Hara. This is an amazing story of the Rebbe. It's unbelievable. Pashut, it's unbelievable because the idea of being able to become a Baal Tshuva is something it's not obvious. Even today, no matter how much powers we have, and the Rebbe was the one to actually give an extra power to people in our days, in the whole idea of shlichut. And as we know, now it's the Kinus HaShluchim. It's happening instead of in New York because of this pandemic. Unfortunately, it's happening on Zoom. And on Zoom gives us the opportunity to share it with many, many more people. So that's the good side to it. But this whole movement of shlichus and of shluchim of the Rebbe is basically to give us more and more power and encouragement in order to become Baalei Tshuva. So to summarize what we basically spoke today, we spoke about Esav. That was one topic. Just to understand Esav, who was he? Was he a good person? Was he a bad person? How could it be that Esav was the son of Yitzchak? Yitzchak was someone pure, was someone holy. How could he have such a bad son? And we said that the answer is, he's not a bad son. He had the potential to be bad. He was meant to actually become a good person, in a certain way to become even better than Yaakov. Because Hashem doesn't need, why 99% of the population are actually Baalei Tshuva? Why do we all struggle? Simply because that is more special to Hashem. Hashem likes that much more. Hashem prefers people that are sweet and sour, not people that everything is obvious for them, everything's easy for them. I'm not underestimating tzaddikim. Hashem says that he puts tzaddikim in the generations drop by drop. There are a few tzaddikim to lighten our lives, to show us and to guide us through our lives. But Hashem created this whole challenging world, especially for us to overcome these challenges. And this is Esav. And the second thing that we spoke about is, where do we get these powers from to become Baalei Tshuva? And we said we receive it from Yitzchak when he basically had a son that's name was Esav that suffered from the same thing. He had the same problem. He needed to overcome his Yetzer Hara. And the last is the interesting story about Nimrod, this person that had a bad name, came into the Rebbe and he wanted to change his name. The Rebbe said, no, Nimrod, being a rebel is something good, something positive, something very good. But you've got to pick the right person. You've got to actually choose to become sorry, 1 second. You actually have to choose who to rebel against. And our mission is to rebel against the Yetzer Hara. Thank you very much for attending this shiur, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the next shiur next Sunday morning, B'ezrat Hashem at 9:30 here on the Facebook page. And thank you again to Raya and Mordechai Meltz that are helping us tremendously to make this all possible. Have a wonderful week. Shavua Tov.